Thank you so much for joining us. Again, this is Trinity University's Learning Tuesday, and today's installment is about choosing a major. And first thing is we need to talk about who we are. So hi, my name is Hillary Everts. I myself am a Trinity graduate. I studied theater and communication in my time as a student at Trinity. I'm originally from Fort Worth, Texas, so just up I-35 a little ways from San Antonio, Texas, where Trinity is located. And I serve as one of our assistant directors of admission.
Wonderful. And my name is Elena Wilson. I'm also an admissions counselor at Trinity, but a Trinity University graduate as well. I graduated in 2017 with a double major in East Asian Studies and International Politics with a minor in Chinese language. I'm not a Texan. I'm actually originally from Iowa, and I now call Texas home.
Alrighty. So this gives you a snapshot of what our time together today is going to look like. Elena and I are going to talk very broad strokes about what it means to choose a major, how to go about doing it, and ultimately trying to navigate those waters once you get to college. And so these are just some of the core pillars that we found when we were talking about our experiences in college and how we ended up choosing our major, and then also what we see when working with students. These are some of the core areas that we've distilled down for our time together today.
Wonderful. So I will get us started here. Hopefully everyone's excited to be joining in on this session, and Hillary and I are certainly excited to share this information. But we want to start by encouraging you to reframe this question you've been asked and might now be asking yourself is, what do I want to do when I grow up? Or what do I want to major in? You've probably heard that a lot already, but today we want to challenge you to shift a little bit and ask more deeply, what am I passionate about? And so all cliches aside, what we're really getting at is what genuinely interests you, both in your career aspirations, but also in the classroom, because ultimately what you decide to major in, you're going to be spending hours and hours in and outside of the classroom with that material. So we would hope that you would generally be interested in that. And so right now today, some of you might be on the call and you know exactly what you want to major in. That's great. You know exactly what you want to do after college. Some of you might be in the other camp where you have no idea what you want to major in. And I know when Hillary and I gave our introductions, we were more in camp number 2, or you might be somewhere in between. And we just wanted to let you guys know that that is completely okay. You have time, and throughout today's conversation, we're going to give you some tips and tricks to equip you to make those important decisions down the line. But just be sure that you take a moment to self-reflect on this, and just know that trying to align your major with your genuine interests and passions that to keep you, thriving and moving forward. That's what we're really here to support you in that. And so we definitely have an example here of a quote from a student that we wanted to share with you of how Patrick, for example, he came in, he didn't know what he wanted to major in. And he took time to reflect and try to align his interests with his career aspirations. And now he's been able to find that at Trinity where, he's really enjoying what he's studying and he's satisfied with his major selection.
Mm-hmm. And so what Elena just mentioned in terms of it's a very introspective process. That's really the point here, is that choosing a major is not one size fits all at all. It is not a box that you can check that's going to be the same box for every person. There's no sorting hat. There's no yellow brick road. There is no secret formula or secret sauce on how to get this right. And so it is very, very personalized, and it's important that you recognize that this is your life. This is your future. This is what you want to spend your time doing. Not anybody else's, not your mom's or your dad's or your older siblings or your friends. This is about you. It's the time to really dig in and figure out what it is you're interested in. And so everybody's journey is going to be different. It's really important to know too that there is no such thing as a hierarchy of a major or hierarchy of subjects. what may interest Elena might not interest me. And it's not going to do me any good to sit there and struggle and labor and be miserable in a class or in a curriculum that I don't enjoy when Elena enjoys it. And so, really, truly, it's all about digging in for your passions and interests. And oftentimes, when we work with students, it feels like there are 5 things that you can be in the world. You could be a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher, an engineer, or a business person. And then there's the 6th area, the other, that people don't often talk about. And it feels like if you don't fall into one of those 5 categories, then you're doing something wrong. And that's not the case at all. While the world is filled with wonderful business people, engineers, doctors, lawyers, and teachers, the world is so much more than just those people in those professions as well, too. And so it's just important for you to think about, do you already have a dream goal in mind? Do you already know that you want to become XYZ person when you grow up? That's going to impact your major. Maybe your major needs to be something very specific to align with those career goals. If you don't know what you want to do when you grow up, totally fine. Also means that you have more flexibility with the opportunity of your majors. So here's something to help put it into perspective too. There are over 5,300 accredited colleges and universities across the United States. And the fact that every single accredited institution has the power and the opportunity to create majors as they see fit means that it is virtually impossible to pinpoint how many different majors there are across the United States and, more importantly, across the world. And that can feel really, really overwhelming when you're just trying to find one to start with. And so we think it's important too to put it into context of some people's experiences. And so Dan Lubetsky is a Trinity graduate. He attended Trinity and graduated in 1990, and he chose to study economics and international relations. You might recognize the logo on his vest because he is CEO and founder of the Kind Bar Snack Corporation. And so one thing about Dan's journey is that he could not come to Trinity or any other school for that matter and earn a degree in snack bar CEO. That doesn't exist. And so he was able to take those experiences and those opportunities that he had and use those tools to help build his future career path. And so your career in life does not always equate what you end up studying. So we just thought that was important too, to put into perspective of how your major is a piece of the rest of your journey moving forward, but it is not the wholly defining moment. The other thing too is that it's important to keep in mind some of the trends nationally. And so you might hear when you either go on and visit college campuses or you're visiting with your older friends or siblings or parents, you might hear the question being asked, popular majors. What are the most popular majors on your campus? And so you'll see on the left-hand side of the screen, or right-hand side, the side that says national major trends. Those are some of the most popular areas of study across the United States. And you'll see next to it, the Trinity trends. You'll see that there are a lot of overlapping academic areas of study, but then there are also some nuances too. And so it's really important to know that just because a major or an area of study is popular does not equate or necessarily mean that the major is a quality area of study, and also if it's going to be a good fit for you. And so that's just something that we wanted to help put into perspective in terms of the trends that come with popularity often are dictated by socioeconomic trends and different industrial and economic drivers across the United States and the world. So case in point, computer science has been one of the fastest growing areas of study across the United States for the last several years. And we've seen that too on our campus in San Antonio.
So now, Hillary, I have to jump in here real quick and go back to those trends. I don't see my majors on there. I don't see your majors on there. What does this mean?
You know, that is such a good point. I studied communications, so I see one of my majors up there, communications, but then my second major was theater. And just because you don't see your major being the most popular of majors doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with that area of study or that it's less than. Again, going back to the fact that there is no hierarchy of learning or subject matter, you need to follow your path and journey and what brings you joy. And so if that does not happen to be any of these 10 boxes, then that's okay. Elena, you don't see your squares up there either, or your degrees.
I do not. I see modern languages and literature, so I did have a minor in Chinese language. So I've got that one there. But my other two, both in East Asian studies and international politics, are not on there. But I would argue that they were, they were very important for me, and I still find myself applying what I learned in those majors every single day in work aspects of my life, but then also in a lot of other aspects of my life too.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And so I think that is a great segue too into, we want to encourage you to keep an open mind. This is an ever-changing process. You are going to change a lot within your first semester in college. So we encourage you to keep an open mind along the way. Your interests, believe it or not, they might change. They might shift a little bit. And so think about moving with that a little bit and seeing where that takes you. That is okay. And we really encourage you to do that. So when maybe you're reading through the course curriculum before you sign up for classes, dive into a few elective classes that sound interesting to you, but might maybe appear at face value as a random class. You never know where that might take you. Or if anything, if it's not specifically for your major path, odds are it's going to be useful in your whole education. So just something to keep in mind there. And in this same vein, please be open to discussions, and even those that are a little bit difficult or tough discussions that you might need to first have with yourself, kind of an honest evaluation of maybe your strengths and weaknesses in and out of the classroom, but also conversations that you should have with professors and advisors, just an honest conversation of where you see yourself going. Is this the right path for me? That requires an open mind. Be willing to have backups too. That's okay. As I said, things might change, and you'll thank yourself later down the road to have those backups there. And lastly, it is okay to change your mind. It happens a lot, but hopefully through the tools that we give you today, you'll feel empowered that if that intersection comes up, you'll be ready to handle that. And we actually have a quote from a student here, a current Trinity student. I love this. So Jordan came into Trinity with the goal in mind that she would go on to be a doctor. So she wanted to pursue our pre-health professions advising track and dive into biology. Turns out after her first year, her heart wasn't in it. And that goes back to passion, right? It didn't really speak to her. So she took time to reevaluate, have that difficult discussion with herself and professors. And now she's on a different track towards business analytics and technology and thriving. And one thing I want to point out here too is she was able to make that change, and she's still set to graduate on time. So change is okay. It will not totally change your trajectory of graduating in 4 years. Now, with this, please make sure you do some research, because different majors, different programs are more structured than others. And so just to name a few, you can think of engineering, computer science, or anything really related to health professions. They likely have a very sequential semester sequence where each semester is structured so that it builds upon the next one. So there's a lot of prerequisites that you'll need to take. Those are often easier to switch out of later down the road than switch into if you still want to graduate in 4 years. So just something to keep in mind there, that flexibility across majors does vary. And that's just where having those discussions early and doing your research will help you prepare for that.
And so the great thing to keep in mind too is that each one of you has resources at your disposal that can help you in this journey of figuring out what it is you should major in and how to sort of lay the foundation of your academic path moving forward. And so each one of you obviously has access to the internet, It is so widely used now. And so you can Google just about anything. And you might have access to some of those Frisk guides or those college guides that might give you some guidance too in terms of identifying what might be a good major. But you also have living, breathing humans who can help you in this journey and have those conversations with you. And more than anything, just be a sounding board for what it is you enjoy doing, what you don't enjoy doing, and maybe matching those up and seeing how they can align with what you want to do when you grow up. So currently, right now, in your high school experience, you most likely have a guidance counseling office where your high school counselor resides. We understand that each one of you goes to a very, very different school. You might go to, like myself, I went to a large public high school in North Texas, and I did not know my counselor at all. And so, therefore, I would not necessarily feel the most comfortable going into my guidance counseling office. Others might go to much smaller schools where they have an intimate relationship and a good rapport with their guidance counselor. And so, wherever you fall in that spectrum, your counseling office or the guidance office is going to be a great resource. Even if you don't have a rapport with those individuals, they most likely have resources on hand. So binders full of college search guides and recommendations, or Wordle graphics of identifying what you can do with X area of study. But utilizing your counselors is a great place to start. Once you find yourself on a college campus too, you've got a ton of resources available at your fingertips. Just about every single college campus is going to have a career services office in some way, shape, or form. And career services whole goal is to make sure that once you leave the doors and cross the stage with your diploma, that you are going to take that next step on into your career, whether that is getting a job or going into continuing your education. Whatever that journey is, they want to make sure that you are prepared and ready for that, so that you are going to be ultimately employable. That's the goal. And so career services is a great place to start, and just having those guiding conversations. Also, tap into the alumni network. There may be the Dan Lubetskis of your current university who you identify, I think that is so cool that that's your job. And I want to talk to you to understand, how did you get from college to there? What was your journey and trajectory? Those are often called informational interviews. And because you have that alumni connection or that school camaraderie connection, it's incredible the opportunities and the conversations that you can have with people. So definitely take advantage of them. Another great resource is career fairs. Say you are walking around a career fair at your high school, or maybe even at your college when you get there, and you see a really cool company and you want to learn what degrees they're looking for, or what skill sets they're looking for. That might be a great place to help you guide those conversations too. If you have an end company or organization in mind, those career fair representatives might be able to help you backtrack and sort out what might be a good path. And then my favorite thing is the experiential learning aspect of it. Is while you are in high school and in college, you have all of this flexibility to pursue internships or job shadow and figure out if what you think you want to do is actually what you want to do before things get a little bit more complicated and you have a job contract that you have to sign, and those other layers of transitioning into a full-time employment role. And so I know, case in point, I thought I wanted to go into dentistry when I was in high school, and I shadowed my family's dentist for a day. And I quickly realized that that was not for me. I don't like people's teeth, and I don't want to put my hands anywhere people's mouths. So it was important for me to have that experience to realize, okay, we need to shift gears and change directories here.
I think those are great tips, Hillary. And to the point about college fairs and working with career services, alumni network, I would also say it's never too early to start with that. I remember I had a professor at Trinity first semester, my first year, and she almost said it as if it was a requirement, but encouraging everyone in our class to attend this college fair. And I'm thinking, oh, I'm just a first year in college. I have no idea what I'm doing. But now I get it. Now I know why she was really encouraging us to go, because it was enlightening, and it forces you into that position. Okay, fast forward 4 years, where do I want to be? It's just never too early to start with that.
Mhm.
So I'm glad that you turn them
Yeah.
into resources.
And more than anything, too, asking and talking to the people that you look up to in your life. If they are in your same group or organization, or maybe they're a family friend, but if you trust them and you look up to them, go ahead and ask them what they studied. And it's incredibly enlightening what those people in your community and in your social circles can help you with your path moving forward.
Definitely. And just to really hone in a little bit more on this point of maximizing the curriculum and beyond. And so the experiential learning opportunities that Hillary is talking about. So not just diving into electives that I talked about earlier, but just really enforcing that no class is going to be useless to you. Um, Take each class like it's for your major, and give it all of that attention, because you never know what you're going to bring from that. Um, but to experiential learning opportunities, basically this encompasses anything that you do outside of the classroom. And so we just encourage you to have more and more of these opportunities on your plate early, where you're having an opportunity to apply what you're learning in the classroom to actually in the field, hands-on experience. You're going to see a lot of growth from that. And so that this is just a brief list here. You can see ways to do that. But one I really want to focus on is take a moment to reflect on the clubs and organizations that you're involved in, and specifically the leadership roles that you find yourself gravitating towards, because more often than not, that is going to be the most telling thing of where your genuine interests lie, because that's where you're spending your supposed free time and energies on those things in those groups. That's pretty telling of what you enjoy. And that might match up really well with your career aspirations. So along the way, we encourage you to take a step back, reflect, and see, what does this make sense? Am I in the right path for me?
And so that really wraps up the sort of guiding pillars that Elena and I brainstormed for y'all today. But we wanted to leave you with a few words of advice from some of our current students that we just asked them if you could go back and tell yourself anything as a student starting college, what would you wish you had done over differently, or what do you wish you knew? And so these are some of the key quotes that came out of those. So Kelly really wished that she wasn't as afraid to explore new subjects. She always knew that she wanted to come in and study engineering, but even in the back of her mind, she wished that she had those opportunities and that bravery and that courage to take some chances and take classes that were outside of that academic program. Jordan, we've seen Jordan come up previously in our presentation, but she definitely would tell her freshman year self that make sure you find something that you enjoy and that you're passionate about. I know another anecdote that I have from the start of my college career is I thought I wanted to study psychology, and I loved my AP psychology class in high school. It was amazing. So I got to college and I took a intro to psychology class and I really enjoyed it, but then I started to continue progressing with the psychology curriculum, and I found myself dreading doing the reading. I found myself not looking forward to going to class and having those conversations. And that's when a light bulb went off for me of realizing maybe I don't want to study psychology, and that's okay. And so finding those opportunities where we can't stress this enough, what you study should be something that you enjoy doing, because this is, if you're setting yourself up for the rest of your life and your career path, at least your first job out of college, or what you think you want your first job out of college to be, you better make sure that it's something you enjoy doing, or else you're going to dread going to work every day. And that's not going to be fun for anybody. And then again, Patrick has come up previously too, and we cannot stress this enough, but don't be afraid to change your mind. Change is not a bad thing, and you have so many people in your corner and support systems along the way to help you make sure that you're making change in a smart way. But don't ever feel like you're stuck or bound to a certain academic area of study, because you can always make a change.
Yeah, that's a great point. And actually, Hillary, I want to dive into our questions because we got a lot as we were going along. And one of them, to that last point about changing your mind. One question here is, how many times did we change our mind when choosing a major? And I don't think I could say it was, I know some people that it was, 5 or 6 times. I wasn't to that degree, but I will say probably probably twice. And then it took a lot of maneuvering to declare my second major too. So that was another journey of self-discovery. But, I came in completely undecided. I had a lot of different passions, but luckily Trinity is a strong liberal arts institution. So that was okay. And it was encouraged to explore across the curriculum. So I think at one point, to be honest, I was really jazzed about environmental studies and I loved my geology class and lab. So I was thinking about that route. But then deep down, I've always had a passion for East Asian culture and language, travel, and diplomacy. So I started taking a few classes in Chinese history and language, and one thing led to another. And that's how I ultimately set on my double majors. But yeah, for me, it was about twice. I don't know. Hillary, how many times did you change?
Yeah, so I think what's important to keep in mind, excuse me, I got a tickle in my throat, but I think what's important to keep in mind is that how you go about formally changing your major oftentimes depends on the kind of school you attend as well. And so Trinity, as Elena mentioned, is a liberal arts institution. And typically liberal arts schools don't require you to declare your major until you're a little ways into the curriculum. So at Trinity, you're not required to declare your major and put it down on a piece of paper until 2 years in. Whereas at some other schools, like my older sister, went to a large state school, very, very different than Trinity, and she had to apply to a specific major in her application process. And so that was very, very different than my experience. And so I took my sweet time. I took that full 2 years to explore and take those classes that I thought I enjoyed. And I thought I wanted to do psychology, so I was taking some psychology classes. My dad really wanted me to study computer science because he saw the trajectory of how big and popular it was going to become. So I took a computer science class, really did not like that. But what I continued finding myself gravitating towards is I signed up for classes that I enjoyed and I found interesting. And it was actually spring of my sophomore year when I was meeting with my academic advisor, and they were looking over my classes that I had already taken. And they said, "You do realize that you were only 2 classes away from a theater major?" And I was like, "Oh, you don't say." And so I was taking classes that I enjoyed and I wanted to be in. And that sort of led me inadvertently to my major and my primary major, which was a fantastic fit for me. And then similarly with communications, I knew I loved words and I loved how we interpret media and consume words and content. And so that's what our communications degree offers. And so again, I was taking classes that I enjoyed and I wanted to go to. And so just sort of naturally fell into place. But
Yeah, I
I
think
think,
Hillary, oh, go ahead.
oh, well, I was just going to say, so I don't think I ever formally changed my major on a piece of paper. Like I waited so long that I just put what I had already known what I wanted to do and put it down on the piece of paper once. But internally, I probably changed my mind 5 or 6 times in the course of those 2 years of thinking, yes, this is what I'm going to be when I grow up, or no, this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah, I think both of us had a similar kind of experience navigating through the curriculum and figuring it out as we went. But again, back to our earlier comment, there's no one size fits all. So you might be on this webinar today and know exactly what you want to do, which I see that from your questions too. So we'll definitely get to those. I've got a question here specific to our biochemistry major, and really to any institution, I would say encourage you to explore their academics website. Usually each major will have their own page with all the faculty and department heads on there, different contact points, different research opportunities. So I think that's a great start for you. And then Hillary and I's information is here. We welcome you to ask more specific questions to us via email or phone. And we can even work to connect you with maybe current students or professors at Trinity that are in that field so that you can really get all of the information you need.
Mm-hmm. And so I saw a couple of questions about how you actually go about declaring your major and then what that process looks like. And so ultimately, we every institution is going to be a little bit different, but it does include some paperwork. And so at Trinity, every single student has an academic advisor who you meet with every single semester before you are released to register for your classes. So you are constantly working one-on-one with this advisor who you're having conversations with about what you enjoy and what you don't enjoy and helping you map out your 4-year timeline or trajectory. And so before you declare your major, you're definitely going to have to talk to your advisor and just make sure that you're on the same page, that it's a good fit for you. And then you go to our registrar's office, you get the appropriate paperwork, you have your advisor actually sign off on it, and then you turn it back into the registrar. And so that's sort of the minutia of how that process works. And then there was another question related to that of is it common for Trinity students to have multiple areas of study? And the answer is yes. More than 40% of our students pursue more than one area of study. And again, that oftentimes has to do with the flexibility of our curriculum and the fact that you don't have to declare your major until 2 years in. And overall, our curriculum is so flexible and fluid that oftentimes you can take classes in one department or area of study, and it can still contribute towards your other department or area of study. And so your advisor, again, is helping you with that navigation process. But Patrick, one of the students who we quoted, he's a triple major. And so it is very common for students to be you can have a primary major with several minors, you can have 2 majors, you can have 3 majors. It's all about time management when it comes down to it, but it's definitely a possibility. And at an institution like Trinity, where our curriculum is so flexible, you can end up pursuing things on opposite ends of the academic spectrum that maybe at other institutions it might be a little bit more rigid and challenging to do. So case in point, you could be a double major in music and neuroscience, right? The fine and performing arts versus something more in the STEM related field, 2 very polar opposite ends, but you can still pursue those 2 areas of interest and graduate in a 4-year timeline.
And I see some questions here too, just clarifying majors versus minors. Should they complement each other? And a lot of times they do complement each other, but I've also worked with students, who are maybe a chemistry major and a religion minor. And yet they've figured out a way to fuse that together, and both of them can still play off each other, even though on paper they seem like 2 seemingly very different topics. You're not required to specifically align your major and minors together. It's really up to you. At least at Trinity, I can speak to that. Yeah.
And then any doubt, I saw there was a question about, is there doubt about your potential major normal? 100% yes. It is totally okay and completely normal to have second guesses and doubts. Case in point, Jordan, the first student that we pulled a quote from, she thought in her heart of hearts that she wanted to be a doctor since she was little. And then she came to Trinity and she started taking those courses in the curriculum that would gear her up towards becoming a doctor. And she realized that it wasn't bringing her joy and it wasn't a good fit. And so that was a case in point, a moment of doubt where it ended up leading to a change, and a change for the better in her case. Also, Kelly, the other student another one of the students that we quoted this afternoon, she came in knowing that she wanted to pursue engineering. And so she still is a declared engineering major to this day. But along the way, there were doubts when she hit roadblocks, right? When the curriculum was really challenging, or maybe something wasn't clicking. And so there were moments of doubt along the way of if that was the right path for her. But ultimately, in her case, in her journey, she stuck with it, and engineering has proven to be the path that is best for her and her goals and what she wants to accomplish. But doubts are completely normal.
Absolutely. I think with any big decision, there are going to be some doubts with the challenges that present themselves along the way. So I would just encourage you to keep an open mind through that. be willing to have those tough discussions like we were talking about earlier. And then that's okay. You're not the only one who's doubting.
So I saw another question about designing your own major to an extent. Elena, didn't you do
I wish I did. No, I did not. So
that?
I did not design my own major per se. They were two existing majors, but I got to choose what I wanted to concentrate in within that major. So, for instance, political science, there's a bunch of different concentrations you can choose. American politics, Latin American politics. Um, I chose international politics because that's what really got me going. And then for international studies, you can focus on any region of the world. I gravitated towards East Asian studies. So that's kind of how I navigated those, I guess, becoming more specific in my area of study. And then it just naturally came about that I was able to declare a minor in Chinese. But I know that some people at Trinity have declared a second interdisciplinary major where they kind of were able to fuse their different interests. I think a great example is one student who had an interest in global health. And so she was able to fuse like a business management and international studies together to make her second interdisciplinary major.
Hmm. Yeah. So let's see what other
Lots
questions
of
we've got coming in.
questions.
Okay, so someone asked that we took classes that seemed interesting and fun, but were they elective classes or in a major? So really and truly, and I guess this one's very Trinity specific, but at Trinity, Elena and I are both visual people, so bear with us. Ultimately, your degree will come from 3 bucket areas. All of the credits that you take will ultimately fall into one of 3 buckets. One bucket is your major requirements. So your primary major for me, that was theater. That's where all of my theater credits went to fulfill that requirement. The second bucket is elective credits. Every single degree at Trinity requires that you take courses outside of your primary major in order to graduate. And so that paper making and bookbinding class that I took my senior year while it was in the art department and it was a part of the art major, because I was not pursuing an art major, it satisfied an elective credit for me. So there are a lot of flexibility and opportunities with that. And oftentimes too, the beauty of the elective bucket of credits is that's where second majors tend to flourish, or minors, or interdisciplinary design your own second majors, because you already have to have the core backbone of your primary major. So that elective bucket gives you a lot of freedom. And then the third and final bucket is your pathways or your common core curriculum bucket. And so this is, think of it like the high school state standards that you have to take a certain number of years of English, math, science, social studies, and foreign language in order to graduate by those state standards. That's very loosely what our curriculum, our common core curriculum of the pathways is related to, and that these are the core areas of understanding that every single student at Trinity, regardless of if you are an engineering student, a Chinese major like Chinese language student, or a theater student, every single person has to fulfill pathways in order to graduate. So all 3 of these buckets are fluid. They are permeable. They are designed to be completed over your entire 4 years at Trinity. And so there's no rigid structure that you have to complete your common curriculum before you move into your major or your electives. That's where the beauty of working one-on-one with an academic advisor comes into place to really help you navigate those curriculum. And at Trinity, we don't admit students based on academic area of study. So when you're admitted to Trinity, you're admitted to every single program and department we have to offer, which means you can take any class anywhere. You can take an engineering class, even if you don't want to be an engineer. Would I recommend it? Probably not, but you have that opportunity. So it's really incredibly accessible to take classes outside of your primary major.
Yeah, and to reiterate too, you're not navigating this process on your own. You're going to have your professors and your advisors. So if you're confused about, well, what classes do I need to take to fulfill this major or minor requirement and to fulfill the requirements of the university, that's where they're going to be able to step in help you navigate that process. So I know there were some questions here too about uncertainties, like how do I know exactly what I need to do to get from point A to point B? I mean, every university is going to have the course bulletin posted on their website, so you can start looking at that. But it can be overwhelming. So you'll have other resources on campus to walk you through that as you go.
Mm-hmm. So there's a question here about on campus, are there activities or programs that undeclared students can participate in to help you discover your passions or major? And that is a great question. And the answer is yes. And oftentimes it is related to our residential life programming. And so every institution is going to be different, but at Trinity, we are a residential campus community. And so students live with, for all of our first years live together, all of our sophomores live together, and then our upperclassmen, our juniors and seniors live together as well. And with those, there's educational programming that is tied to each specific stage of your transition through college. So for example, when you're a first year student on campus, you have an RA or a residence assistant, a student staff member of residential life who lives with about 18 of you on one hall. And so your RA is there to help guide you through some of the first nuances of living away from home, sharing a room with someone you're not related to, time management skills, having civil discourse or disagreements with someone you're not related to, some of those social learning moments that come outside of the classroom. And so that's primarily your first year. It's very small group setting because it's making sure that you transition and you feel confident and comfortable in this transition into college. But then the sophomore college experience, where all of our sophomores live together, that's one RA to about 40 to 60 students. And that programming really focuses on majors and what it is you want to study, since that's right around the time when students start declaring their major at Trinity. And so they have this fantastic program called Major Mixers or Major Dinners, where they will put on a free meal that students can come and enjoy. And we will have faculty members from different departments or areas of study to present and talk to them about what it means to be a religion major or what it means to be a fine arts major or in that sort of area of the curriculum. And so there's a lot of active programming that goes along with that. And then also too, every single professor at Trinity, their email and contact information is available on the website. And so if you have ever had a question about computer science and you really wanted to talk to Dr. Mark Lewis, you could find Dr. Mark Lewis on the website, send him an email and say, I have some questions. I would love to set up a meeting with you. Our professors all have office hours throughout the week. And so that's certainly an opportunity so you can talk directly to the people who would be teaching you to figure out if it's a good fit.
And to that point too, I'm seeing there are some more Trinity specific questions in the Q&A. So we would encourage you to reach out to us via email. We can connect you with current students and professors in those departments. But I'm seeing one, for example, on our tracks for pre-law track or for pre-health professions track. Hillary, is that a major or is that a track? And what does that mean?
Yeah, so there is no such thing as a pre-med major or a pre-law major because everybody's journey to get to med school or law school is different. You could be a theater major and go to law school. You could be an English major and go to med school. So that's the way we intentionally built our curriculum is to divorce that concept, right? That you have to study political science to go to law school, or you have to study biology to go to med school. And so pre-law and health professions are two advising track programs at Trinity, which mean that your academic advisor serves on an overarching committee that helps you understand the process and the qualifications and what those next step institutions are looking for. And so certainly you could major in political science and still go to law school, or you could major in any of the STEM and life science fields like biology, chemistry, neuroscience, and still go to med school. But really giving you those opportunities to truly broaden your horizons and understanding that you can still be on the pre-law advising track and be a music and neuroscience double major. just so long as you take those those prerequisite courses for that curriculum when you ultimately apply to that next step graduate level program, and your advisors are going to be able to tell you what exactly it's going to take to get into law school and what exactly it's going to take to get into med school. So long as you follow their advice, you have a lot of flexibility to study any number of items on the curriculum or major in anything.
And I have this is an interesting question here too. Are there some majors that are more competitive than others? Specifically, since health majors are really popular, does that mean it's harder to get into? So I can speak specifically to Trinity. When you apply to Trinity, you're applying to the university as a whole, not to a specific program. There's no quota, there's no max for Trinity, because we're liberal arts and we encourage students to take classes across curriculum so that you're not siloed into one department for all 4 years. It can be different in other institutions though, or where you might need to apply right off the bat to a specific university school of business. And so that's where I would again encourage you to take time maybe this summer or early in the fall to do some research on that, of what universities do require that separate application for a program.
Mm-hmm. And I see a question here that is just screaming for me to answer it, Elena, about theater. And so, do you have any advice on finding the right theater major? I feel like there's so many options at so many different colleges that it gets overwhelming and I'm not sure where I want to focus. That is a great question. And the answer is not clear cut and straightforward like all of our answers, because there are different kinds of theater schools. So if you know in your heart of hearts that you want to go to Broadway and you want nothing more than to just sing and dance your heart out every night on a stage, you might need to look for a conservatory program, which means that your curriculum would be hyper focused and really concentrated on the actual performance and making of theater. So that you can go to conservatory programs to be on stage, backstage, technical theater, any number and facets of theater. Like I said, I sort of fell into my theater major at Trinity, and I did theater all through high school. I auditioned for every single show. I really, really enjoyed my time. And when I graduated from high school and was applying to ultimately choosing where I wanted to go to college, I was not certain that I wanted to major in theater. While I love the arts, I did not want to make a career path out of it in terms of going to Broadway and doing the big city, big lights. And so I knew that I wanted the option to participate in theater as an elective or an extracurricular activity in college. Because that's the other piece too, is if you know you still want to participate, but maybe you don't want to major in it, that's an important piece of the puzzle to navigate. Because at those conservatory programs, the students who are making the theater happen are the students who are majoring in theater. And probably very, very rarely do they have students who are studying something completely different and just participate because they love theater and they love acting. So when I was in your shoes, I didn't think I wanted to major in theater, but I knew I wanted it to be a core part of my extracurricular experience in college. And so those were some of the questions that I asked when I would engage with current students or admissions counselors or go and visit campuses, of asking, can I still audition and be in the plays and in the musicals, even if I don't major? And not every school gave me a yes. Many of the schools said, no, it's just for majors or anything like that. But when I got to Trinity, Trinity's focus with theater is not just performance based and the actual act of making theater happen, but it's also got a great backbone and foundation in the academic importance of theater. And so the 3 core classes of a theater major at Trinity are play structure analysis and then history of theater 1 and 2. And so it helps you understand how theater has been a persistent and lasting art form since the Greco-Roman times, and how it is important to conveying socioeconomic and political and different moments in throughout history and storytelling as a narrative. And so I really enjoyed that there was an academic aspect of the theater degree and not just the performance base. So it's a really personal question, and hopefully that helped give you a little sampling of it.
Hillary, I might need to put you on the spot again, because we have another question about what types of careers are available when pursuing a communications degree. And so I know that was your second major, and
Yeah.
I had a lot of friends at Trinity that they majored in communications and then had a double major. They had a major in something else, and
Hmm.
now they're off. One's working at a digital illustration company, one's working at the Houston Art Museum. It seems like it knows no bounds. You're in admissions, so can you more specifically answer that question, or is that it's simply that is that it equips you to really thrive in any industry?
I think that's the answer of a communications degree. Honestly, any degree can get you any job. There are some degrees that are hyper specific and focused at the graduate level, right? Like, in order to be a lawyer, you have to go to law school. In order to be a doctor, you have to go to med school. But almost any single degree that you pursue and thing that you major in, you can get a job and be successful. And so communications, while it most clearly aligns with working for a marketing firm or doing communications for a who knows any number of iterations of that, I really enjoyed my communications degree because it gave me the opportunity to understand how people consume media and consume content. And that is just something that I enjoy in my personal life. And so you can get a job doing anything with a communications degree, or a modern languages and literatures degree, or a religion degree for that matter.
Okay, so we have a few questions on the timeline again of declaring a major and then going on to graduate effectively, hopefully in 4 years. So one question is there a limit to exploring different majors? At Trinity, no, based on our flexible structure, you're encouraged to explore different majors. It might get tiring to fill out paperwork 5+ times or whatever, but you will have resources and support on campus to do that. And we've seen students change many times but still graduate on time. But there's another question here on, is there any way to graduate earlier and how? And I think Hillary and I have both seen that. Some students can wrap it up in 3 to 3.5 years. They just work very diligently and they have a degree plan mapped out pretty early on in the process. Wouldn't you say so, Hillary?
Yeah, and I think it all circles back to time management and
Mhm.
how you want to spend your time in college. Because to be considered a full time student, that is taking at least 12 credit hours. Full times, like a very, very full course load, is 18 credit hours. And most Trinity students take about 15 to 16 credit hours a semester. And so that was my trajectory when I was a student, is I almost always took 15 hours a semester. I was still able to be involved in several clubs and organizations outside of that and have a job, and still graduate in 4 years. But not everybody's path is that clear cut and straightforward. And so I think it really just depends on you, your motivations. Do you want to spend 4 years to take your time and explore those passions and maybe take that philosophy class that you've always wanted to take, even though it's not required for your major? Or do you really want this to be a transactional experience of get in, get out, move on? And so there's no right or wrong way about it. It's just identifying what is your purpose and motivation for doing so in a more efficient manner.
We've got a few more questions here. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Which majors at Trinity are students recruited the most and or graduate with job offers? Statistically, that is hard for me to pinpoint. I do know that upon graduation, about 94% of our students are on to graduate study or are employed and dive into the workforce. I don't have it broken up by major to major. Trinity has that stat in aggregate. But I know that our programs across the board perform really well. And in the San Antonio and Austin region, I mean, employers know the quality of a Trinity graduate, and so they're looking out for you. They come to those career fairs each year that Trinity hosts, so you get that interaction with them early on, and it only increases your chances. And all those experiential learning opportunities that we encourage you to take advantage of, those are going to be on your resume, right? Employers are going to see that and get really excited about what you can do after you graduate.
So Elena, we probably have time for one more question.
Okay.
And again, as we mentioned, if you have more questions that come up after our time together is over, or we weren't able to get to your question this afternoon, you can feel free to reach out to either of us. We're more than happy to help answer your questions. And then too, as we've mentioned, faculty and staff contact information is available on the website. And so if there's a very specific question that you have about XYZ degree or department, we might not be able to help answer that question, but we can definitely point you in the direction of who would be best suited to help answer it.
I think one final question then, if I can put that on, is do you have any advice on whether students should consider the occupation within a certain major or just look at the major itself? So when they go in to declare their major, should they be thinking about next steps to occupation, or should they just be thinking about the declaration itself?
Mm-hmm. I think that's a very personal question. Again, of everybody's journey is going to be different, but I think it's really smart to have that balance in mind of, yes, you should study what you enjoy doing, but you should also start thinking about how you can translate the skills and knowledge that you gain from that degree into either a job or a next step continuing education program. Because and that's also too where career services comes into play oftentimes, is we encourage students to go and start visiting career services as soon as they get to campus. It is not our goal to have second semester seniors waltz into the office and say they've never built a cover letter before, they don't know what a CV is, and they've never had an interview. That is not the goal. Career services is there to help students from the very first day that they step foot on campus and help them start thinking about, how can I translate this XYZ major, an area of study, into a future career field, even if you don't know what that career field is yet. But being able to articulate the skills and knowledge that you've gleaned from your curriculum is going to be really, really valuable. And so your advisor can help you with that process. Again, we're going to keep iterating this. You're never alone in declaring your major. You have so many people in your corner, so many support systems there to help guide you in this conversation and help you with these reflective questions. But I do think it's important to think about what you might do with that degree, and if that's something that you can play out into a professional career.
That's great. Yeah, I don't think I could have answered that any other way. That's really good advice. Hopefully that was helpful to everyone in all of these questions. I know there were a few still left out there, but again, please reach out to us after this. We'd love to engage with you.